Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Adoptions from the Heart TV. I'm your host, Amanda Aliberti. We talk a lot about transracial adoption and what does it take to build a multicultural home. Today, we have the opportunity to hear from two adoptees. Jordan and Jason both identify as Black, and they were placed for adoption. They're 13 years old, and they are joined by their sister, Julianne, who's Caucasian. The family's going to talk about what it has been like for them being a multicultural family and what advice they have for other transracial families. Now let's turn to Jordan, Jason, and Julianne. So welcome to Julianne, Jason, and Jordan. Hi guys,
Hi.
How are you?
Good, thank you.
Do you guys want to start by saying just a little of who you are, how old you are?
Yeah, sure. I'm Jordan and I'm 13 years old.
I'm Julianne and I'm 18 years old.
I'm Jason and I'm 13.
Wonderful. Well, we first want to thank you guys for coming on this platform to really share your story of what it's like to live in a multicultural family. You know, we talk a lot about transracial adoption, and it's always fun and interesting to connect with adoptees who have actually experienced it, because it's, you know, only so much we can do by talking about it, but to talk to folks who have actually lived through it is really helpful to kind of spread awareness about multicultural homes. So Julianne, why don't you start by talking about when you first welcomed home your two brothers?
All right, so I was 5 years old when we brought the boys home for the first time. They were born at the hospital where my dad works, so that was kind of really cool. We got to visit them in the hospital, and he was able to go down and see them as soon as we were picked as the family to adopt them. And I remember being like so excited because my parents picked me up from kindergarten. They were like, you're gonna have two little brothers. So that was really fun. And then we stayed. It was an out-of-state adoption for us, so we stayed in Delaware for a couple of nights waiting for the adoption to go through, and I remember thinking it was so cool. We stayed in a hotel, and I got these two little brothers. It was like the best couple of days ever.
And you are Caucasian, is that correct?
Yes.
So beforehand, had your parents had any conversations with you about what adoption would look like, what it might be to welcome home a child that maybe didn't have the same skin tone as you guys?
Yeah, so I was really young. I don't think that really wasn't on my mind at all. I just wanted a sibling. I didn't care anything other than just a sibling. So my parents hadn't really addressed that with me, but looking back now, I definitely had gotten like picture books that addressed the topic, but just went over my head a little bit at the time.
Sure. And at what point did you realize that your brothers were not the same skin tone as you?
I think it was a gradual thing, and more so of other people saying things that made me realize it, like, oh, okay.
Sure. Well, and I'd like to welcome Jason and Jordan to the conversation. And just to clarify, what race do you boys identify as?
I identify as Black.
Okay.
Same.
You would both identify as Black. Do you remember a time when you realized that you were not the same skin coloring as your other family members?
To be honest, like I didn't really have like a big moment that I remember. I just started noticing like once I got older, kind of gradually, like I'm Black, my parents, the rest of my family besides my brother is white.
Sure.
I'd say the same for me. It was never like a thing that I realized. It was just like something that I guess I just gradually like started to understand it, I guess.
Sure. Are there other people around you in your lives that you look like, that you have a similar race or skin tone as? Do you have people in your lives that you resemble?
Yeah, there are a couple of kids on my basketball team, kids in my school that are mixed, just like me. But yeah, same.
I was gonna say probably the same since you guys are twins. Now, this is kind of a question for all of you. Growing up, did you guys read books or kind of talk about what types of families look like, and did you have things around you where you felt like you saw other people that weren't just in a family where everyone was the same race?
So it was a lot of like, as we got older and older, we would have different conversations about like us not being obviously the same skin colors, them what they talked about what other people might say to us because we aren't the same skin color as them, and they kind of just prepared us for getting older and older and still living in a white household.
Okay. I do know that our parents made an effort to, as you said, books with mixed families and that kind of thing, so that we would feel like we had relations within literature and that kind of stuff.
Jordan and Jason, do you guys ever have moments where you're in a certain environment with your family or your parents or your sister, and you guys do feel like really different?
Actually, I wouldn't really say that there's any like huge moments that like where I really feel different, but there I usually like our friends and people we hang around, we hang out with some black kids, some white kids. Like it's never like all white kids or all black kids, so I never really feel like that. I mean, I guess it does feel different in a way sometimes, because like you're really like in most places you're really the only like mixed race like family around here. Like it's not like there's like a bunch of families that have like black kids, white parents, whatever. So I guess sometimes it does feel different, but
does that ever make you feel sad, or it just makes you feel like, okay, we recognize that we're different?
Yeah, I guess it just makes me recognize that we're like just different. Yeah, I've never really gotten like down on myself for being different or down on myself for being having a mixed race family or anything like that. Like I've never felt sad about it.
In your family, do you guys talk about race? Is that like an open conversation?
Yeah. There's a lot of like smaller conversations that we've had about it, but we've also had like really big conversations where we've talked about like really kind of hard topics to talk about. But yeah.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. It's definitely a pretty common topic around the dinner table. Okay.
Yeah, I'd say the same thing.
And how do you guys feel like, what role has your parents played in that? How do you feel like, what has your parents done for you guys that you feel like you've had this good support around you?
I kind of started noticing once I got older that they've been preparing us our whole lives for experiencing racism or something, like we're like people looking at us funny and stuff like that. So I think they did that through like books, conversations, getting us in different activities and stuff like that.
So our parents do this thing like on Valentine's Day, where instead of doing the traditional Valentine's Day, like hearts and love and everything, they'll get us books about diversity and racial diversity, and then of course a box of chocolates too. But that's something they've done for a couple of years now, and I've always appreciated that.
I'd say that they've paired us in a way to like stuff that we're gonna, maybe like racism that we might experience or something like that.
It sounds like you guys have some pretty loving, supportive parents.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're very good at that.
What advice would you guys give to other families, parents who are preparing to bring a child home that's of a different race? Like, what are some things that parents can do that would help that child grow up and feel supported?
I think the main thing for me would be like showing them both sides of it, not just like, I think it would be rough if I just grew up and only knew the white side of things. Like my parents didn't educate me on both sides or anything like that. Like they just completely let that the other side of me just like we go untalked about. But yeah, I guess I would say like make sure to show them the other sides of things, like just exposing them to both like cultures or whatever.
I think what the boys really appreciated about what our parents did as we got older was they involved more role models, like Black role models, like people that my parents worked with, or one of their best friends. His dad is a strong African-American male figure, so they spent a lot of time around him, and I think they learned a lot about the African-American culture in America through those role models that my parents have provided them with.
That's wonderful. That's so nice that you guys have that. So what would you say to a woman who is Black and is about to give birth and place her child with a white family, who feels nervous, like, will my child, who's going to be a boy, specifically a boy, be raised the right way? Because I know sometimes we have women who are Black and they question whether or not their child can be raised by a white family. So what advice would you give that woman who is kind of a little unsure of whether or not it's going to be okay for her son to be raised by white parents?
Honestly, I just would say, like, to maybe try to, like, keep in touch with the family and try to like maybe give them tips or educate them so they can then educate the child. But yeah, that's what I would do. Just like keep in touch and make sure and help if they're like struggling to educate them on Black culture or something like that.
Great.
I think that they should definitely like make sure that they're still teaching them the stuff that they need to know to keep themselves like safe and everything like that. And I think that as long as they know like that the parents are teaching them that type of stuff, they'll be like fine.
How about for you, Julianne? Would you have any advice to give to her? Because I know that can be a struggle sometimes, is, you know, this idea of what will this look like?
Yeah, I mean, I think that she would make the right choice and she would place her son with the best family possible, and sometimes even if they don't look like them, it might be the best choice. And I don't know, advice-wise, I guess the boys, the route that they're going with education is probably the smartest route, but I don't know if that's not necessarily her responsibility, which is really hard.
Do you boys, Jason and Jordan, do you guys have a relationship with your biological family?
Yeah, we see them. we see them at once every year. We were meeting them at a diner, but this year we might try to do something different. They send us Christmas presents, we send them Christmas presents. They send us stuff for Halloween. We sometimes send them stuff for Halloween. So yeah, I think we definitely have a reasonable relationship with them.
And what does that mean for you guys?
I think it's really cool because like I just feel like it leads to so much kind of confusion and just like wondering if I didn't know that my biological family, I just feel like it's good to know where you came from, know the people that you were obviously originally the family you were originally born into. I just think it's really important to understand and know that.
Sure. How about for you?
I think that it's I don't really know how to put it, but I guess it shows you, like, if you still have a relationship with that family or that person or whatever, I feel like it shows you that it's not like something that came from like there was like a reason that they couldn't keep you as their kid or whatever.
It makes it a little easier for you to understand why they chose to place the two of you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. My next question is something that people, when they're learning about adoption and transracial adoption, they'll ask this sometimes. Do you ever feel like you want to go be with your biological family because you have this pull towards wanting to be with other folks who look like you and have the same race?
I've never really felt like, just because like my family, I just love my family so much, and like I never really felt like I seriously felt like I wanted to like leave my family, but like in some situations there's definitely been situations where I'm like, oh, I might wish that I was with my with someone like me right now, like someone like, obviously my parents try to educate themselves, but at the end of the day, like they're not Black. So there's some situations where it would be kind of I do have like that thought in my mind, but I've never like seriously like thought I wanted to leave my family or something like that.
Sure. You just kind of think about what it would be like to be around other folks that may look like you. Sure.
Yeah.
How's that for you, Jason?
I definitely have never thought that I would want to like go live with my like biological family like ever, but like the thing that I would think would be better is if I was like around more, like just in general, it would be better. I feel like if I was around more like Black people, but it's not like I would like want to go back and live with my biological family. It would just, some situations it just feel like it would be better if like I was around more Black people, but not like the family that like my original like family or whatever.
Our area where we live is a lot of very white people, so we don't have as much racial diversity as some other areas, so that makes sense.
Sure. But it does sound like your family does a lot to have diversity in your lives, and you have good role models, you have people you can connect with. But I appreciate, Jason and Jordan, that you are open to admitting things that maybe you would like, and that's okay. And it sounds like you'd be comfortable sharing that with your parents as well, of maybe things that could help or things you may want down the road.
Yeah.
So what would you guys say to somebody who says that they are colorblind and that they do not see race because they feel like we are all just one happy world and race doesn't matter?
To be honest, like I know a lot of people say that to like obviously help, but like at the end of the day, you can't just go out and act like you don't see Black from white. It's not like one side's a positive, one side's a negative or something like that. I just feel like it's two different races. They both have different cultures and way of life. So it's like you have to realize that and recognize that to be able to live and be with other people. You have to realize that you can't say this or you can't say that, or you can't do this or you can't do that. So I think it would be, a lot of people would get offended, a lot of people would get frustrated if people just went out and acted like they don't see color. I think personally that like there's really no way to act like you don't see color, like, because I feel like you have to be able to see the difference between Black and white, because they like there's a different culture. And also I just feel like it doesn't really help anything if you say that you're colorblind. Like there's really no way to help any cause, like if you're just saying that you're colorblind. And I feel like when you say you're colorblind, you're also like not really acknowledging the stuff that happens when people that like do care about color like have a problem with this or that. And I feel like when things happen that involve like race, if you say you're colorblind, you're not gonna be able to understand that.
Sure, absolutely. I know that your brothers are 13, right? They're gonna be turning 14?
In December, yeah.
December, yeah. So you're young teenagers at this point. Julianne, do you ever have fear of what the future might bring in terms of your brothers leaving out of your home and facing that big bad world that we do live in, unfortunately? Do you ever have fears of what they might have to deal with as Black men?
Yeah, so I'll be in college next year, so I won't get to see most of their teenagehood. And I think what scares me most is when they learn to drive. And once they get their license and like my parents aren't in the car with them anymore, because I mean, that's kind of the one that you hear the most often. It's the scariest for Black people who are getting pulled over by police officers because you don't know what to expect. I mean, getting pulled over is scary as anyone. I can't imagine having just another barrier set up against you, because unfortunately that is a common occurrence that a Black person gets hurt when they're pulled over by a police officer. And that's just one example.
Well, and it does sound like you guys have lots of ongoing conversations as a family, and these are topics that you talk about regularly. Jason and Jordan, do you think about that sometimes? Like, I know you talked a lot about growing up in a white household. You did have some racial mirrors of other Black folks around you, but do you think about what life is going to look like when you become young adults and you eventually leave home? What life will look like when you do eventually leave and go off on your own as Black men in this world?
Yeah, I think about that like all the time. I think it'll be like, honestly, it is kind of scary thinking about, like, the main thing that I think about that like scares me is like sometimes there'll be nothing I can do to not be looked at a different way or to not be judged just because of the color of my skin. So that's the scariest part for me, knowing that like I could be doing the complete right thing and something could still go wrong for me just because of the color of my skin. That's kind of the part that it kind of like falls off when my parents can't like tell me everything. They can't they're not going to be with me forever. So it's not like I'm going to have to learn a lot by myself once I get older, but I'm ready for that.
How about for you, Jason?
I mean, I guess I think about how it'll be when I'm not living with my parents anymore, but like, I guess I'll think about my future, but like, it's not necessarily that I'm like, okay, I don't have to worry about this or anything like that. Like, I know I do have to worry about it, and the thought of that happening is definitely scary, but I think that I'll be able to, handle it? I don't know. Yeah, I feel like, I'll be able to handle like the stuff.
Well, and it sounds like you guys have been given a lot of great tools to be ready for that to happen.
Yeah.
So my final question to each of you, when we're discussing the idea of a multicultural family, right, or adopting a child that maybe doesn't look like myself, what do you want people to know about living in a home with a family where everybody doesn't have the same skin tone? What do you want people to know that you feel like maybe people don't realize?
I would say that to people from like the outside looking in, like, it may look different, but like, don't view people a different way just because their family don't think, they don't know their culture or the other culture, just because they don't live with a fully Black family or a fully white family or a fully mixed family or something like that. But for people, for just that family in general, like mixed race families, I just think like education is the biggest thing, like to educate your kids or even the child once they get old enough to educate their parents. I just think that's the biggest thing, education on the different cultures.
I think pretty much the same thing. I think it would be better if you not just like tell them about the different culture and stuff like that. I think it would be good to also like try to show them that stuff and like, I guess, let them kind of be a part of their culture in like a way that they can do without living in a Black home or something like that.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with Jason and Jordan. I mean, education. It's the responsibility of the adopted parents to educate themselves and the children that they adopt or child about the culture that they come from, because you can't ignore the culture behind someone, because even if you are adopted and you didn't grow up with that culture is there, and without acknowledging it, then it felt like a piece of you was missing, right, guys?
Mm-hmm.
So you don't want to ignore that part of a child because it could lead to identity problems, and you want to make the child feel as whole as possible. So
Well, I just want to thank all three of you. I mean, Julianne, you're an amazing big sister. You seem to love and care about your brothers in such a just amazing way.
Thank you.
To Jordan and Jason, you guys are well beyond your years. You are extremely smart. You're self-aware. You really do get it. I'm assuming a lot of that is the reflection of your family and the love and support that you all have given each other over the years. But we just want to thank you. And we're just really happy that you've been able to share your story and hopefully help some other families who are trying to learn, grow, and educate themselves.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much to Julianne, Jordan, and Jason for opening up and sharing what life has been like in their family. Race is not an easy conversation, especially for white people. But we're hopeful that hearing from adoptees such as Jason and Jordan can help families better understand how they can really work together to have these important conversations. You want to make sure that there's open lines of communication within your family at all times. We live in a really tough world right now, and we want to make sure that kids feel comfortable growing up and identifying with who they are and what their heritage is. So again, thank you so much to Julianne, Jordan, and Jason. You guys are awesome. We're so proud to have you within our community, and we're hopeful that our audience members were able to learn from your story. Thank you so much, guys, and take care.